G'day everyone, welcome to the How to Halo Reach ODST web series. This is of course tutorial part 7. That's 8. 7. My name's Andrew DFT, and of course in this tutorial we're going to be focusing on the thigh plates. It's probably out of shot, but there is a thigh plate down there. And of course it's this here. It is a very nice piece that will go on both 1 and 2 thighs. Some people like to put magnums and other ammo pouches on the side of it just to build up the design in general. But to build this, it's extremely easy, a lot easier than some of the previous tutorials in this web series. So to rate it, I will actually give it a 3 out of 10. It's very simple to do, very little of actual template adjustment, and you only need to build in 2 layers. So very simple and very easy, and we'll jump straight into it. Alright, so to kick things off, go ahead and print out the 2 templates needed for this tutorial. Luckily we're only using 2, so it should be relatively easy going forward to follow on which pieces you're actually going to be using. So once you've done that, cut it out, of course, from the A4 piece of paper and masking tape those 2 pieces together so you have this really nice piece of a thigh template, which looks relatively good, I might say. Moving on. What you can do then is transfer the whole thing onto a EVA foam sheet. You're going to transfer the whole outline at this point, and we'll slowly work our way in. Once we've got that EVA foam slab all cut out, we can now go to the template and cut out this side panel. You don't need to do both of them at this point. We can just use the one and transfer it over as we continue forward. So what you're going to do is you're going to flip the foam over and transfer the lines on to create these side panels. So you should have the 2 lines sitting somewhat nicely, pretty much like this. As long as you replicate that, you shouldn't have a problem. Then what you can do is you can go score the lines so that you can come in and cut on an internal bevel. Of course, we've done this on many of the previous tutorials. The reason why we do this is because it allows us to create a really nice fold line. So that way we're not cutting all the way through the foam and creating a seam. This way it allows us to really nicely create these edges simply by cutting that beveled edge, putting some hot glue in there, heating it up, and bending it until it's nice and firm. Which actually looks pretty cool, I must say. Now what we can do is we can start working on these side wings and put the detail in. So what we can do is we can cut out these sections that are on the wing panels, and we can transfer those on to where they should be on the actual foam slab. All you need to do is literally just lay it on top and trace it. Not too difficult, should be easy. And now what you're going to do is you're going to grab a nice sharp blade and take your time, because you want this to be somewhat decent, and cut those pieces out of the foam in total. Now you are of course going to do 4 of them because there's 2 on each side. But once you've cut the piece out, we're going to slice it in half because we don't need the full form. Once you've cut it in half, you can put it back into position on a inward level and then just glue it in. So you have these nice kind of 3D looks going on. But of course it looks relatively flat at this point. We want it to be a bit more bended. So what you can do is you can heat up the center. Don't heat up to the side panels because we just glued those in. You can heat up the centerpiece, and then once it's nice and warm, you can bend it around your thigh, pretty much where it's going to go. So that way you have a nice flush fitting piece that's pretty much contoured exactly to how your thigh is. And make sure you do bend these top 2 prongs kind of inward, just to allow it to wrap around your top hip, I guess you could call it. Now we're going to start building the extra layer, the second section. So what you can do is you can grab the template and cut out the 2 pieces like you can see on screen. You're just trimming off all the fat, so to speak, of what we used on the previous template. Then you can go ahead and transfer this design piece onto the foam and cut out that design piece out of said foam. Once we've done that, what we're going to do is we're going to start breaking apart the template to really transfer these design specifics onto the actual foam slab. So what you can start off by doing is cutting out those 4 little squares in each corner and then transfer those onto the foam like so. Very simple and very easy, so hopefully you don't get too lost there. Then what we can do is we can go ahead and cut out the perimeter lines, and we can transfer those on just to give it a nice kind of border. And then of course we'll score those all later on. But once we've transferred that, we're then going to work on the internal section. This is just going to be a nice little layout. This is where most people put their magnets if they want to mount magnums or ammo pouches or something to the thigh. This is where you put your magnet strip. So once you've got all that laid out, what we're going to do is we're going to cut out this section in the middle, cut it completely out. We don't want it in there. What we're going to do then is slice it in half like we did with those previous pieces, so that way we get a much thinner piece, because we're going to glue it back into position but have it on that nice kind of internal level just to give it a bit more of a 3D aesthetic. And then of course glue that into position. I was about to swear there and say glue that into position, but keeping it PG here, guys. Then what you can go and do is cut out all the individual squares using a nice craft blade. Once you've cut out all those individual squares, cut them in half again, so like we just did before, and then glue them back into position. I didn't do the whole tutorial because we just did those processes twice, so you should have it in your brain now. Then what you can do is you can grab that middle section and cut it up into all the pieces, and then slowly just transfer that on. You can do that freehand if you wish, just to avoid all the nitpicky tiny designs. But once you've transferred it on and it's sitting there nicely, what we're going to do is we're going to grab the craft blade. Oh, apologies. What we're going to do first is grab our blade. No, I said it again. What we're going to do is we're going to grab our pen and we're going to mark out where exactly this section will sit on top, the bottom thigh piece, and we're going to glue it into position. Once it's all glued, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our pen and grab the bottom segment and cut that out, because we're going to glue it back into position on a different level. But before you do that, you want to of course mark in all the designs that we currently have on the template. You can just freehand that, I recommend it, it's probably going to be a lot easier. And then go ahead and glue that back into position. You won't need to reheat it, you just need to slot it into position like so, because it's already bent to the correct format. But you want to put it on another level, so you should get this kind of 3-tiered effect going on. And then of course to finish it, go ahead and score those lines, and then we'll heat it all up and make sure all those lines really separate apart and become this nice nice seam. And well, that pretty much wraps up the thigh piece, and it should turn out something like that, which actually looks pretty impressive. I must admit, I love seeing the designs in this raw form. But yeah, thigh piece done, dusted. Make 2 of them, you'll need it. So that's it. Hopefully you guys managed to follow along, and like I did say, it would be a reasonably easy tutorial. One of the easiest out of the bunch, and it actually probably creates one of the coolest designs. I love the look and feel of these Reach Marine and ODST thigh plates, and of course, like I said, you can go ahead and customize it, personalize it as much as you want, add a whole bunch of extra features, or even bring up some of these extra levels, or even make this 3 thicknesses if you want it to be a bit more protruding and boss. But that's about it. Now I'll of course join you in part 8 when we go ahead and work on the knee section. That is not too difficult. It does involve some technique to make it fit your personal leg style, whether you have large calves or small thin calves. It all depends on that, but it's not too difficult, not like the gauntlet was, however. But thank you so much for watching. Of course, good luck on the thighs. I hope that turns out well for you, and I will catch you guys later.